Hello everyone, welcome into Above My Pay Grade. My name is Eric. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know from time to time I like to tell taxpayers where their money is going in the military. And at the end of the day, if you don't have a fighting force that can defend you, your economy goes down the toilet, believe it or not. So military is kind of important to economic growth. So, as I've said before, there's a recruiting problem in the military. And typically what happens when there's a recruiting problem in the military, they magically lower the standard in order to get more people in. But the Army has a middle ground. They're introducing a basic training preparatory course. Basic training is supposed to prep you for the military. Now they have a preparatory course for basic training. This is to get soldiers who can't meet the physical or mental standards of the Army to even get into basic training. So they have 90 days at Fort Jackson, South Carolina to get up to snuff. One of my friends called it a fat camp for retards. That's what the Army is doing now. I think that's a little harsh. But the military is, the standard to join is pretty low. Pretty low. Usually you take you have a BMI test, you have to pass some certain physical things, and you have an aptitude test. Now, why does that standard exist? In theory, that standard exists because if you can't do those things, like read, you can put your soldiers, your fellow soldiers, and yourself in danger in a combat zone. And oftentimes, the lowest scores on the aptitude test go to a combat career field like infantry. So, the military is trying to take motivated people who cannot pass the physical training test or the aptitude test and get them up to snuff. Now, if that's really what it is, and within 90 days that you can take somebody who can't read and get them up to snuff to pass the Army aptitude test, then fine. Is that really what's going to happen? I highly doubt it. They're going to lower the standards. Now, excuse me, this has happened before. Vietnam War, Secretary of Defense at the time, last name McNamara, he had a program to help get more recruits for Vietnam because they were drafting at the time. Right now we're an all-volunteer force, of course. But they were drafting at the time, and it was politically unpalatable to draft college students, because everyone thought we were going to just have a bunch of dummies if no one went to college. So you could defer your draft if you were in college, so we had to find recruits from somewhere else. And Lyndon B. Johnson and McNamara came up with this great idea to recruit people who can't meet the standard. He called it McNamara's 100,000. A lot of people called it McNamara's morons, because if you've seen the movie Full Metal Jacket and you've seen Private Pile, you might have thought, this person shouldn't be in the military. And you'd be right. But he was part of McNamara's 100,000, which is people who could not physically or mentally meet the standards of the military. Somebody's excited in the neighborhood. Physically or mentally meet the standards of the military. So we let them in. Again, if you cannot do that, why does that standard exist? Because you are a danger to yourself and others. And in the Vietnam War, McNamara's 100,000, it was a controlled test, but they were 3 times more likely to die in combat than their counterparts, on top of the fact that they took more man-hours to train. And most of the people that were training them would say, we can't even get them to the basic level of understanding. And these are people, some of them, who actually have diagnosed mental disorders in the military, handling a gun. And most people looking at what McNamara did, they thought it was an abuse of people who were in this position, because these people were not wanting to join. They were drafted at the time. And lowering the standards, in hindsight, was not a good idea. But what happens when the military is stuck between a rock and a hard place? Nobody wants to join. Your best and brightest don't want to join. They got to find them somewhere. So people with the least amount of options is typically who they go to, people from broken homes, etc. And I'm not saying that taking people like that and giving them an opportunity in the military is a bad thing. It could be a good thing. But it has to be under the umbrella of effectiveness. If it lowers the effectiveness of the force, lethality, what their job is, because they spend more time training, remedial training, etc. I don't think that's a solution. Especially if we're drafting people, and we're not yet, but we might get to that point where we draft people. But lowering the standards typically takes, a decade or two, or a war to come out in the wash, where you realize, wait a second, this was not a good idea. But they are faced with a tough decision. So they need to either lower the workload of the military, lowering the manning strength, meaning lowering the workload, or they have to recruit from somewhere. And the best and brightest don't want to join. And I would rather take a motivated person with lower standards than an unmotivated person who thinks they're smart or whatnot. But this could be very dangerous. I'll link the stories of McNamara's 100,000 and this new recruiting tool that the Army is using in the description below. But you got to think about it. It takes man hours of current people serving in order to run this 90-day course. So you're taking people away from somewhere else in order to have this train for basic training course. And I don't know, seems kind of sus. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.